I need for folks to do is tell me if you can hear us, okay? All right? Make sure you can hear us. We don't want to be here talking just for the sake of talking. Now I went too far. I'm missing a shoulder. There we go. All right, we just went live, okay? So, all right, welcome back to the program. I'm here with Errol Langdon in Birmingham, Alabama, and we're in his FEMA tent. We're actually inside the tent.
With cows on the wall and everything. Good morning, everybody. Good evening.
Trying to give it that Boer feeling back here.
Scottish Highland cows, but, you know, okay, well, close enough.
That is a Highland cow, those shaggy, hairy things. Let me just make sure. Can you guys hear us? Give us, actually, I can do it here. I can play this and I'll know. You guys hear us? Give us, actually, I can do it here. All right, sounds working great. All right,
good.
Cool beans. Well, welcome back to the program, folks. I'll do my best to incorporate some of your questions if I can from the chat. I'll have to put on the reading glasses because I still haven't got any sleep. But Errol and I are here. We just went out and did a couple short segments to talk about baseball and also talk about the living environment around here and what things are like. So Errol and his family have been here for going on 3 months now, and they're making an adjustment. Life is interesting. And how's your experience been so far? I know we've talked a lot about it. We talked mostly about the positive things. We haven't talked about anything bad things, but I think you had one thing, not a bad thing, but could happen anywhere, where your daughter fell off a bicycle. And how did that go? What was that like? I mean, did you have to wait 37 hours for treatment? Were people rude to you?
No, actually, as terrible as the experience was, my daughter came off a bicycle, and as they say in South Africa, she bought part of that kind of territory, and you know, took her to the emergency services. We were there about 4 hours. In that 4 hours, there were x-rays done. There was a CAT scan done. She saw 2 different doctors. She had like 3 different nurses, nurse assistant type people coming through there. Just end to end, everything was done. We barring the CAT scan, we never left the room. They came in with a mobile x-ray machine, all that kind of thing. It was just simple, end to end, and it was done. One of the great things here, and in the room where we were, is it's law. You may not turn somebody away if there's an emergency situation. Yeah, and so they have to treat everybody regardless of what your medical
what your insurance, what your race is, what your gender is, doesn't matter. That's the law in every state and territory in the country. So you cannot deny people emergency care. Now, that said, some locations like, East LA, getting emergency care in the emergency room may take a lot longer because a lot of gunshot victims there. I'm just saying, got to keep that in mind. But sorry, LA, but it's true, Los Angeles. No, but seriously, that's the deal here. You can't refuse people. Unlike what we just saw at Annandale Hospital in Durban, where a white 77-year-old South African man went to the clinic to see them, and he was assaulted by thugs because they presumed that he was a foreigner. There's xenophobia, and they demanded he show ID. Did anybody in the street, any civilians, force you to show your ID to get your child treated?
No, not at all. I couldn't identify myself at the time because we didn't have a social security. We just got in yet. It had only been a couple of weeks in. So as far as America is concerned, we didn't really exist yet. And even with that, we got treated, we got assisted. Bearing in mind, just one thing I got to mention, that for those who do use the emergency services, a bill will come. It's not free. It's just they can't turn you away. They will save your life and then take it away by getting the bill paid. But you will get treatment.
So your daughter got treatment, but you got a heart attack.
Pretty much. We were lucky though, because we part of the refugee program is medical insurance. We get Medicaid that comes with us. That covers you for a year, and that covered the bill for us entirely. So we didn't get a bill. But just a warning.
But I got the bill. I'm a taxpayer. I got his bill. Yeah. All right, your kids aren't allowed to play outside anymore. No, but look, we make light of it, folks. But the reason we make light of it is because there's been so many jerks out there that have misrepresented what's happening here and the situation. Earl, I remember that in the interview with Annika Larson. And by the way, I thought Annika was very fair in that interview. I thought you came across, for the most part, pretty fair. There were a few issues that I took with how her producer put the video together, not related to your experience, but more related to the Deep South and Alabama. But I thought that the interview, my perception was pretty fair. But in that interview, you talked a little bit about, and I think you said it very succinctly, not every one of the 59ers has had an opportunity to give their thoughts on this. Some got family back in South Africa who are under threat. They're trying to sell businesses or properties, and it's put at risk. We saw what happened to Santana Hurley when they doxed her, and then suddenly people don't want to buy her house that she was selling. So you talked about it. You said, this program was announced. You thought you qualified for it, so you sent in an email and said, I'm interested. and you were one of the 59ers. I mean, you didn't do anything wrong.
No. I mean, I've been roasted in South Africa for multiple reasons. But people have said I'm not an Afrikaner, I'm not a farmer.
Stop. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. I'm going to interrupt you. But as I've identified from the outset, the program's not for farmers. It's not for Afrikaners. It's for people suffering from unjust racial discrimination.
Yeah, I was going to say just that. It's not the case at all. Colonel, you've been right with that from day one. It is, as much as it does cover those people, it covers a much broader group. So, so it's the rhetoric and the hate and everything that's come from that side in South Africa has been insane. But we're here and we're having a good life.
Well, here in the chat, we're seeing already Edward saying there were land grabs yesterday, 10 minutes away from where Edward's living, Edward Gaiba. And then, of course, someone mentioned the 2 farm murders last week. And of course, a friend of mine's mother-in-law was a victim of one of these farm attacks near Brits recently, and her partner, her spouse, wheelchair bound, and then restrained in his wheelchair and beaten to an inch of his life and died a few days later in hospital. Those things are very real. But again, let's go back to this. The program, there's been this effort to distract, bait and switch, not really bait and switch, but look over here, the shiny toys, when the truth is over here somewhere. What I mean by this is that when the delegation came to the White House, President Ramaphosa, John Steenhuisen, Parks Tau, Kumbuzo Ntshavheni, and the leader of the COSATU trade union, there was an admission that South Africa has horrible crime. And you get the stories in South Africa, yeah, but everyone's a victim of crime. But being a victim of crime isn't a justification for coming here. If you're a victim of crime because of your race, that's a justification. But just being a victim of crime, if you go in and say, well, I was robbed, I was carjacked, I was stabbed, that's probably not going to be enough potentially to get you over here. But if you know it's because you're white or you're colored or you're Indian and you were targeted because of that, well, that's a different story. Yeah. So I think that's important for people to understand here is that there's been a lot of distractions in South Africa about what this program is and how it plays out. But for you, we've talked a little bit about this before, and I want to go on to experiences, but I want to talk a little bit before we go further about when you first got into this. Just to remind, because not everybody's seen your interviews before, not everybody knows what's going on. So we'll just recap a little bit. How did you become aware of the program, and how did you contact them?
Well, actually, I got to thank you for that, Colonel. Oh, so I've been watching what you've been doing since last year already, and I've been a follower for quite a while. And when this actually came up and was something that became part of the discussion, I immediately jumped on it. And I went onto the
PRM email.
No, before the PRM email, there was the Business Council.
You're talking about South African Chamber?
Yeah. So I applied online there.
Well, you contacted them.
Yeah, I contacted them. So they had a page on their website that I went and filled in. And then it was about a day after that I did that it came about that the PRM email address became available.
Because the South African Chamber of Commerce started talking about this the same time I did. I started talking on Friday, the 7th of February. And that's because President Trump announced it 2 hours prior. And within a few hours, probably around the same time or after me, the South African Chamber of Commerce put something on their website, which apparently a lot of people watch. I didn't know so many people watch that show. That's good news for them. They've got a lot of people following them. But they put something up, and then probably over that weekend is when you contacted them. On the Monday, the embassy put up the PRM email.
Yeah. And as soon as that became available, I put in an email straight away detailing what had happened to me and, what my experiences were, and detailing, my family members and everything else went with that. So that was the process we followed. And then just quick summary, pretty much there was like about a month between instances. They contacted us a month down the line, and then we went out and we had interviews, and then some more time passed, and then we had a follow-up interview, the third interview. We had a second and third interview back to back, a day apart, and that was 2 different government entities. The one was USCIS, and I think Homeland Security was the other one. And then there was about a month that passed after that, and then we went for medicals. And then after medicals, we had a 10-day wait, and then we were on a plane heading out.
Well, there actually was a delay. There was security that you guys were supposed to come in. It got delayed for a week, if I recall.
Well, my understanding is the delay was a logistics problem.
Okay.
But the issue, we did have an issue the day we departed where there was somebody that was actively going after us, but it was one member that was affected, and everybody was under threat because there was apparently a kind of a wide area threat. It wasn't they were going to attack that one person, they were going to do something to the entire building that was there.
And as I've said, Errol, this is one of the reasons why we've been very circumspect about people's security. And that's why I've offered those who are 59ers and others who come over as refugee, If you can come on the program, we can do it anonymously. That's why I've done it for a few folks that are not comfortable letting people know where they're at or who they are covering their. I mean, I've made up names from people like Mariki, you know. Anyway. So that's not meant to be fun. But the point is that we try to protect people's safety, and that's how we did. I did the interview with Thea van Staden in Linwood East before you guys flew. And I didn't know this, but apparently you guys knew about that. At least some people knew she was being interviewed.
Yeah, we knew about it, and that's where the issue actually came from. Is
not my interview, though.
No, not your interview.
Let's be clear about that.
But the fact that she was heading out to us, the person that was threatening her found out. How that person found out, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I don't either, because I hadn't told anybody. I mean, so that was such a big secret that people didn't know. I was at Opiplas for a meet and greet. And that was when we had over 300 people, and I had to leave. And so I had to cut it at about 2 hours. And most of those meet and greets during this last trip were 5 and 6 hours long. Yeah. And Opiplas would have been fantastic to do a 5 or 6 hour one. I would have had a great time there. But I had a clandestine meeting with Thea over in Linwood East. So I had to get over there and get set up. And so we did that, and it was quite emotional. And but that was the first interview. But my point is with that is that because of and I didn't know that it happened. She didn't share that with me at the time about what was going on with that. She didn't tell me that.
I don't think she knew it.
Oh, she might not have known. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's probably why she didn't tell me. So I held that interview until I had dual confirmation that you guys had landed on the ground in the States. Once I got that word, then I had the video uploaded. I was actually in the car, and yes, I looked at my phone at a robot because I was stopped, and I pushed live, or not live, but publish. And I published that interview. And you know, it's not about clicks and views and everything, because if I had done that before you all left South Africa, imagine how many hundreds of thousands, maybe a million views I would have had that video. But once people are here in the States, and everyone, because no one else knew that, I would have been the only place in the world that knew that you were in the States, that you were leaving, because I could have published it. But the point is people's safety. So we're sitting here now at the Talladega National Raceway. If you want to find their house, no, I'm just kidding. No, that's not where we're at. But seriously, okay. So let's go on to experiences here. Have there been anything that's a little frustrating? I mean, it's got to be something. Everything you say is pretty good. I mean, I'm trying to pick here to see if there's something that's not gone well.
Look, the reality is that we're resetting our entire lives.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's a challenge.
That's a huge challenge. I mean, a lot of people get, "Oh, you're so brave doing this," and I think fear, just absolute fear of messing up and not getting it right, I think that overrides any kind of, "Oh, you're so brave." But the reality is that there are things that are a little bit difficult. There are some frustrations, but I kind of downplay them because I like to look on the positive. Resetting your entire life comes with a bunch of challenges. If you do not have a social security number, you do not exist in this country.
That's true.
On top of that, if you don't have a driver's license, you're almost as bad as not having a social security number.
Because you got to drive everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
unless you live in Manhattan.
Yeah, Manhattan, San Francisco, that kind of thing. DC a little bit. You can get around using the public system. Yeah, you use Lyft, which is not incredibly expensive, but expensive. $10 a trip. It does add up quickly.
Oh, that's expensive to me.
But you know, you can manage with that for a short period of time. But you need your own vehicle. You need your own license. So yeah, paperwork, government paperwork. The government systems are super efficient, but they're still government systems.
There's still bureaucracy you got to work your way through. And there's so many different programs and so much happening. And by the way, we haven't shared this, and I don't want to get into this, but people should know that there are people here in the States who are helping refugees who are not part of the program, not part of the case. There's people who care that reach out, and I'll just leave it at that. But just so people know that
there are people around. They don't publicize. They don't want to be in the media at all.
Or the limelight.
They want no recognition except from the person that they're helping. Just the thanks is enough for them. So yeah, I agree. Leave it there. But they're just confirming that.
Just to let people be more at ease, because a lot of people, like you say, it's a huge leap. You're going somewhere, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what it's going to be like, and you worry about it. And so the point I just want to make here is that you may be diving off the deep end, but you're not diving into an empty pool.
No, it's compared to actual immigration, this is a softer landing as you go.
Yeah. Well, we can ask Arctic, who actually is a legal economic migrant who came here to work, and the tens of thousands of dollars and the months that it took to do that, plus the renewal for his visa. It's like getting a body cavity search, except it's less enjoyable. All right, so there's a couple things in chat I want to cover here very quickly here. So Ray Cordier said, "Hello, sir. I used to live in the same area as Errol, and what I can say where he used to stay is not as safe as the leftist news claim it is. Errol did the right move to that side. I'm happy he's doing well." So I don't know if you know Ray Cordier, or maybe it's a made up name, but Ray lived near you apparently. And Nadine Lynch, excuse me, says she's asked a question. I'll usually answer questions, but let me just do this very quickly.
Yeah. No
she
problem.
says, can anyone join the program without being able to prove any threat towards us? Well, Nadine, the way the executive order was written, I analyzed, although it turned out not to be the way it was, and I think they changed it because they realized that they could have like 10 million people showing up at the doorstep. But the way the order was written, it gave the impression that you wouldn't have to prove anything because President Trump declared a group of people, in this case, Afrikaners, but that left the definition of who's an Afrikaner, which there's dispute on. But Afrikaners as a category. Now, under our Immigration Nationality Act of 1980, you have 4 priorities. Now, they're not really priorities as in one's more important than the other. They should have been called categories.
Yeah.
Well, priority 2 is a group of people like Jews or Yazidi Christians or homosexuals in an Arab country or Muslim country, or in this case, Afrikaners. That's how the order was written. But the way the program was rolled out, that's not what happened. The way it was rolled out is the way that it's traditionally done. In order to be a refugee, you have to prove is bad word. You have to articulate an instance of past discrimination or injustice or harm, or a legitimate fear of future persecution. And my argument to people is that, with these, if you live in a rural area with these Kill the Boer songs going on, and thousands of people, 80,000 people showing up at a stadium threatening to murder people, and people in your neighborhood, you have farmer down the road, that to me is legitimate fear.
Yeah.
It's legitimate fear. If I was an adjudicator, and I have been an adjudicator, if I was an adjudicator, I would listen to that, and as long as I believed your story, then I would go for it. But there is a difference here. This is not asylum, it's refugee status, and a burden of proof is very different. For an asylum case, you have to be a legal entrant into America, and then once you're here, you go and you request asylum. But you can't work for 5 months, and you apply, and if they get the paperwork done after 6 months, you can work. So you're 6 months with no money.
Yep.
And then you can't do certain things. There's a lot of restrictions on it, and you have to pay for lawyers, unless you can defend yourself. And it's adversarial for asylum. You go into an asylum case, you're assumed to be guilty. You have to prove this. Whereas in a refugee status, you have to give an articulation, which means explanation. You have to explain it.
Yep.
And here's one piece of advice, Nadine, for everyone out there. And Errol will be able to test this because he's gone through the process. You have to be honest. Now, some people are like, well, of course I'm honest. No, people aren't always honest. Acts of omission are lies. If you carry 3 passports from 3 different countries and you're asked questions about your statehood and you fail to mention that, they discover later on, well, you're a liar. We're not going to take you.
Yep.
If you've been convicted of a crime in the past and you don't tell anyone because you think you might stop you from going, they'll find out about it and then you won't go. But if you were convicted of, you're 18, you were busted with marijuana, something like that, that's a youthful indiscretion. That may not keep you from coming here. I've had a person who's been convicted of treason in South Africa, asked me if they should put in a statement of interest. I said, do it. I mean, that actually might make his case stronger for coming.
Probably.
He probably committed no treason. And an objective adjudicator will look at that and go, wait a second, this is bogus. This guy didn't do anything. They couldn't get him on anything. So, he was facing 30 years in prison. He took 5 years for it. So my point is that you must be honest and forthright, because trust me, I was a federal law enforcement agent, a counterintelligence agent, a badge credentialed official who investigated these things, very specifically this sort of activity. And we find these things out one way or another. And oh, by the way, if you lie and you come over, you can be sent back. So I don't know if they admonished you to tell you that sort of thing.
They did. They made very clear that as much as we've been vetted and we've gone through the process, if they do find that something was a lie, a significant enough lie, you can be deported again. And just to kind of reinforce what you're saying, Colonel, is don't embellish. Don't try and blow it up to more than what it is. Simple, straightforward facts. This is what happened. This is my perception. This is, the story. That will save you from telling the story differently every time you tell it. And then, you're not accidentally becoming a liar because you're trying to make it sound more impressive. Just tell your story. Simple as that. Yeah,
don't embellish. And also, look, this is nothing against Afrikaners, but your community has a habit of this. So, okay. So my sister's cousins, Sari's, nephews, uncles, nieces, granddaughter heard that this happened to us. Stick to the narrative. Stick to the story that you're telling. Don't, your life story may be fascinating. Everybody's got a story, but that's not the time for the story.
Yep.
The time, and if you were, I was mistreated at the hospital 10 years ago and it wasn't racial, but you're still bent, your bum hurt. Now is not the time to air that grievance unless it's related to unjust racial discrimination. So stick to the issues at hand. Otherwise, you're going to get the interviewer or the screener distracted, and they may miss critical pieces that could qualify you for the program. So you got to be focused when you go in there. That's the key thing. So this side, let's get back to this side again. Okay. It's humid down here.
It is. It is. Fortunately, sitting with the aircon on. If you don't have an aircon in Alabama, you have a problem.
I don't know how these people reproduced before 1975. Anyway, but I know that I've been down this way before. But honestly, I've never been to Birmingham except when I was a little kid, so I don't remember. My grandfather, and we were in Birmingham proper, not this lovely area outside of it. But so I was a little kid then. My grandfather had a plane, came down here. And so that's all I saw of it. But I didn't realize it had such natural beauty and hills just south of the town.
It's a stunning area. If you ever get a chance, just drive out of the Birmingham area, just into like to Clay or something like that. And you tree-lined roads, basically, other than the farms, the community is built along the main roads. So there's nothing a few hundred meters in. So you just got the solid, dense trees all over the place. It is, you're living in a forest here. It's just trees everywhere. It's absolutely beautiful.
So what about the kids? I mean, we were at the pool earlier. I went over, sat there, and I melted in humidity. It's 7:30 in the morning. But what about the kids? Are they adjusting? Have they made friends? Are there friends to be made around here?
Yeah, so not so much in this complex. They're still getting on top of that because they've been kind of stuck at home a little bit. But we were in a nice area where they made a lot of friends. People are very accommodating. We actually had some of the parents taking them out to go and do stuff. So, the people here are very, they fit in. They want to help. They see the need, and they don't treat you like a leper that's coming to suck their blood or anything like that. They just want people to be happy and comfortable. Our kids responded to that. They've got a good life here. They're super excited about school that's going to be starting on the 7th of August. So that's all coming up. Riding on that yellow school bus, you see them every now and then. They get all excited when they see a school bus because they know that's going to be their bus soon. Until a week's passed, and then it's not going to be that novel anymore. But schooling has been awesome, and
sorry, people are saying the picture's falling. I don't know if they're talking about the camera or on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's what they're talking about. Okay. I wasn't sure. I got them looked. Okay, so.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, about a dozen people pointed it out. We can't see it. I don't know how they saw that. So anyway.
So,
yeah.
You do know behind us there's a window, and that's looking out onto the actual tents that we.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We're covering up the tents. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you guys for that. So, I mean, look, this is live TV. So, things happen.
Yeah.
Things happen. So that's pretty funny, though. Now I've lost my train of thought where I was going to go after that. So, there was someone in here said, I think it was Maddie, said her fear is that she'll break down and cry. Listen, folks, you have to understand that the people, the adjudicators and the investigators doing these interviews, when they, not the Kenyans who are doing the screening right now, but the Americans who do this, they do this for a living. They deal with cases. I mean, can you imagine they go and talk to refugees who were gang raped in Sudan and had their family members executed in front of them. These are horrific stories that people have lived through in many of these refugee camps, in Chad, in Uganda, in Kenya. And so these folks tell their stories, and obviously a lot of them break down. It's a horrible thing to tell. So don't worry about breaking down. Just worry about being honest, forthright, and sticking to what matters for your case. And then you should be fine. I think that's the bottom line here.
Look, I would just say, don't play into, breaking down and crying and go and make an emotional show.
Be yourself.
But if you're being yourself and you do tear up and you do cry, the guys that are interviewing are very accommodating. They'll give you time. It's not going to negatively affect you. Just don't be a prima donna and try and use it to your advantage. Professor G's in here.
Oh, and he says, the UCIS refugee officers know you might be upset, how hard it is. Yeah. Now, so Professor G is a law professor and an attorney in a state near here where the humidity is even worse than it is in Alabama.
So, that's possible?
Yeah, it is possible, yes. But because they live in a swamp, that's why. Yeah, you live in a swamp, the humidity is even worse. You got the mosquitoes the size of freaking vultures, But so Professor G just made a very good statement here. And the fact of the matter is that folks, the people interviewing recognize that this. So don't worry about breaking down, but you must be honest. And when I say honest, an act of omission is a lie. Okay, you know, if I ask you a question in an interview and you don't tell me the answer, and you knew the answer, and I found out later on, well, that's not going to go well for you.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah, you don't want this to become adversarial, because unlike an asylum case, it's not adversarial. You're there to tell the story of what's happened to you or what you fear will happen to you. And the burden of proof is on the adjudicators to agree with you or disagree with you and make the recommendation. Look, we don't know of anybody that's been denied so far. There may very well be people who've been denied and they haven't come forward, but we don't know of anybody. So we'll see what happens going forward. But the number of people come over also has been a little fewer than my estimate based on the report that Reuters put out. But I can tell you unequivocally, without hesitation, that in this past week, which just ended, I had over 100 different emails and WhatsApp messages from people who are at some stage of this process right now. Look, this is just one little venue, my channel. It's not exactly, you know, gangbusters. I don't have 4 million viewers. I wish. But we just have 100,000 subscribers on a daily average. We probably get 100,000 views, something like that. And that's for all the content I do. So if that many people are contacting me, 100 people, just me, because look, I mean, the 59ers are here, but I only know about 10 or 12 of the 59ers. The rest of them haven't offered to talk to me, haven't contacted me, and that's their prerogative. And I don't pester them and ask for it. But my point is that that's from the first group of 60 people. I've only got not even, you know, what's 10, 15% of those people talk to me. So, I mean, I'm not going to get 15% of all the people interested in this program, but my point is that if 100 people contacted me and have told me about their interview, told me about their paperwork, where they're at in the stage, medical screening, then there must be an awful lot of people. I mean, it's anecdotal, but.
Well, we're getting some people are reaching out to us, and probably there's a little bit of overlap there, but we're getting some numbers coming back. I know definitely there's 5 more people arriving on Wednesday. And, you know, every now and then we'll get some stuff that, you know, tells us that these people are coming across or they're going for medicals. And unless you really have a big problem, once you get, you're going for medicals, it's just a formality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the medical stages, they're just checking that you don't have TB or anything like that. And
well, you can have TB, but you can't have active TB.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the big distinction, folks. A lot of people in Africa have TB. You've got tuberculosis. It's just latent. It's not active. And you can have that. That's unfortunate for you. But the reality is you can have latent TB. That's one of the things I was very fortunate about, you know, knock on wood. All the places I lived in Africa and all the dark, dusty, damp residences that I went into doing things I did in Africa, there's a very real risk of being exposed to TB, and then you give it positive TB time test, and then that's an issue. That kind of keeps you from being deployed in the military some places, so it could have affected my career. But knock on wood, I've never contracted, thank goodness. But if you have active TB, in other words, the virus is active, you're not coming to America until it clears up. Straight up.
And there's very few exceptions like active TB, but that's it. Once you get the medicals and you've got to pass them, then within about 10 days of medicals being done, you should be on the plane.
Yep. Wilhelmine Schreidem says she really hopes the asylum process changed for South Africans already in USA on H-2A. No, I don't think it will. It would require the government to bend the rules of the law, and I don't think it will. Professor G, if you're here, if you want to weigh in on that, I don't expect to see that the asylum rules change for South Africans or them. Now, your point might be not the rules, but maybe the judges who hear their cases might be more lenient or understanding. That's a possibility. But without interviewing every single case and every single person before an asylum judge, we couldn't possibly know the outcome there. It's something you'd have to. Yeah, exactly. Professor G said it won't change. Yeah, and he's in the law. So yeah, that's my expectations. All right. So okay, we did the baseball game last night. We talked about it in the video. They haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
So we'll share a little bit here real quickly. So we went to the game last night, and as I understand it, this is the first chance for you as a couple, and you just had your anniversary, to get away without the kids. It must have been, I mean, sorry guys, kids, if you're watching later on or you're watching right now in the room, they had a nice time.
Yeah, we were, it was pretty awesome that someone else external to our family came to us and said, hey, let me take you somewhere so you can have an anniversary day away. So thanks, Colonel. But it was a great day. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know it was a lot of fun. I introduced you to baseball. I'm going to pop the questions in here as we go because I don't want to miss it.
Sure.
Is it true that embassy works first with people who choose 0 to 3 months, then 3 to 6? No, that's not true. We have no evidence that that's the case whatsoever. I know people that have put 6 months and have already been contacted. I know a person put 9 months already been contacted. That was simply a tool for the U.S. government to gauge interest in the program and when you might be available. If you say 9 months, they may process you now, but they're not going to send you until you're ready to go in 9 months. All right, so that's not true. People are making all kinds of assumptions based on their views. And if it's a South African Afrikaner, the chances are strong that you're a conspiracy theorist and you're going to come up with some conspiracy. Again, if Afrikaners take offense to that, well, I'm sorry, because you know how I feel about Afrikaners very, very strongly.
So but, I can actually add a comment there. When we got called about going for our medicals, we were asked the same question about time frame when we wanted to do it. That wasn't a formal question at that stage yet, but it was made very clear that it didn't matter what time frame I picked. I was still going to go for the medicals, and I was still going to get cleared. We just opted to go with the first group option, which they were pushing for because they wanted to get that out there. But there was at no point, if I picked 6 months, that I wouldn't be able to go, or I'd be pushed into the back of the queue. I would just do everything now, and in 6 months I'd have the opportunity.
Yeah, and let me frame this for people. What happens here? So if everybody, because you're just paranoid, you want to get in the program, says 0 to 3 months, then they have no real idea, and they're going to start interviewing people, and they're going to say it's time to go. Oh, I can't go. I have to sell my business. But you told us you go in 0 to 3 months.
Yeah,
you have to be honest here. Okay, now here's the deal. Let's say you own a glass making factory, okay, in Gauteng. And you put down 9 to 12 months because you think it's going to take you 9 to 12 months to unload your bit. Good luck with that, But yeah, but you think you need 9 to 12 months to prep. Plus, you don't have passports, and your kid's in college, or your kid's going to, whatever. And so you say 9 to 12 months, and that was your expectation when you filled out the statement of interest. If your circumstances change, in the meantime, they will contact you at some point and started the process to go through the interviews and the screening and all that. When you go for that, if your circumstances change, and they say, well, when you contacted, you said 9 to 12 months. Is that still true? No, I actually sold my business and the passports came through. I don't know what happened to home affairs. The bribes worked. We got our passports. And so we're ready to go tomorrow. Can we go? Hang on. Yeah, we can get you next week. All right. So be honest, folks. I mean, that's the bottom line here. You've got to work with the U.S. government here. They're trying to help you, but you've got to help them as well. Professor Sakemba can ask, what did they tell the interviewer? Issues of past persecution or fear of future. Do you want to share that, or
I don't want to go into much detail there, but we relayed what happened to us in detail, and that's pretty much what we gave them. But as to the specifics, I'm not going to share that yet.
Yeah, and that's fine, and that's why I don't ask that of people, because also you're not really supposed to share that information. No. That's a conversation. It's kind of a non-disclosure sort of thing. They may not make you sign a non-disclosure statement. That's the case. So it looks like we have people here that have obviously never been here before. I've only been doing this for 5 months. It seems like 5 decades now with this program. But 1533U, okay, that sounds like something from pre-crime. Are the interviews only in Pretoria, or would they also be done in Cape Town? Is that the entire family or just the head member? Can you give us a ballpark how much it costs? Okay, well, it doesn't cost anything. It's free. You pay nothing at all, except you're supposed to be paying for your flight over. The 59ers were in an unusual situation. It was a charter flight that someone generously paid for out of pocket for them to get over here. But normally for refugees who come over to America, you either pay for your ticket, or the International Organization of Migration, a UN agency, gives you an interest-free loan, which you're supposed to start paying back after 6 months. But if you don't have the resource after 6 months, they can extend that. That's what's supposed to happen. I don't know what's happening now. I think what's happening now, without confirmation, is that the U.S. government is eating the cost of the flights for people coming over now, because it's a small number. And I don't know what will happen going forward. But you pay nothing for medical. You pay nothing for the interviews. You pay nothing for an application. You pay nothing to come to get settled here. You pay nothing for the refugee agents who help you get settled. And that's all free. It costs you nothing. I pay for that as a taxpayer.
Yep, absolutely. We were told that there's a potential that we might need to pay for the flights. But we've had no documents filled out. There's been nobody that's followed up and said this is the case. So we're thinking maybe in 6 months somebody will contact us, but very much quite likely that the government has actually eaten that cost. Well,
in this case, a very generous donor apparently paid for the charter flight. So because that cost millions of dollars for that flight. So you're not going to get that bill, to my knowledge.
Didn't know about that.
Yeah. No, very generous donor paid for this out of their pocket, and that's why it was done as a charter. So that's why it was done that way. That's not the normal way. Normally, it's not that way. People freak out. I told everybody before anyone ever left that how it will work. Well, you'll be processed. You'll get on a commercial flight. You'll come to America, and you'll be greeted by State Department or DHS or something like that. And then you all came over, and then they're like, oh, they're going to shut down charter flights. All the charter flights have been shut down. Oh, charter flight. Wait, relax. It's not that way. And then we got confirmation that people came over in commercial flights. And I said, like, what? Now they're going to come. I told you this the whole time. Why don't you listen to me? Anyway, so it's very frustrating.
So a little bit of an anecdote there, just from what happened with us. We were originally going to go across on a commercial flight. They had tickets booked and everything.
Okay.
And then the
1 week delay.
Yeah, the 1 week delay. Well, the 1 week delay, and then the flights were booked, and then the commercial flight. They had actually set up that plane for us, and they cancelled all the other tickets and then put us through on that. So we were going to go commercially initially.
So the question is about Cape Town and other places. To my knowledge, and I've talked to the State Department about this last week, the only interviews that are done in person currently are in Sandton and in Pretoria. Initially, it was only in Pretoria. We don't know if it'll roll out to other places. If I was running this program, as I said, it would be in Uppington, it would be in PE, it would be in Durban, it would be possibly even in Howick, somewhere like that, as well as Petersburg, Polokwane, and then Cape Town as well. I'd have it in multiple places. That'd be how I'd do it. But that's an incredible expense. We have to send people over to do that. It costs a lot of money. They stay in hotels. We pay for flights and hotels. It costs us millions of dollars to do this sort of thing. So they're probably trying to be smart about this, because you have to understand there was no money for this program. You guys were an unexpected, bonus for the refugee program. And then the whole program was suspended for 90 days by President Trump when he came in office, and you were the exception. So as far as the interviews, lots of cock prodders are running around saying the interviews are taking place here. I know they're taking place here. I know they're taking place there. I cannot confirm that. If that's true, I have no evidence of it. I'm not going to call somebody a liar, except that I've talked to the U.S. government, and that's not the case that they've told me. What is happening is you will get a phone screening. And now a non-government organization called Church World Services, which has a subsidiary based in Nairobi, that handles Africans who are going through the refugee program. In fact, they work in South Africa, but they're in Kenya, for Somalis and Burundians who live in South Africa as refugees trying to come to America. They process them. What they will do is, RSC is their name. They will call you from Kenya. They'll set up an interview with you. They'll send emails. They'll actually book your flights once you're approved. They'll set your medical appointments up. But they have no role whatsoever in your status, whether you're a refugee or not. They don't make any decisions. They don't go, okay, oh, well, this person's not, so we're not going to forward the file. Every file, every question gets answered. That gets sent to U.S. officials, and they make the decisions, not the Kenyans. So you can relax about that. So as far as interviews being elsewhere, don't know. I have friends in the Western Cape who paid out of pocket to fly to Pretoria to be interviewed with the same initial group of 100 so people that include the 59ers. So they have not been called back since then, but they have a very compelling case.
So we just give an example there. We drove up from South Coast each time we went to go for any interviews. We paid all our own costs, accommodation, all that kind of thing. So, there was no assistance provided there, and everything was done in Pretoria. So,
yeah. But the program itself is costless. It's there's no cost to you. You don't pay
for the program itself.
For the program,
you getting there, that's your business.
Right.
Yes.
If you happen to live in a tiny little country the size of Monaco, then you only have to walk to the embassy. But unfortunately, South Africa is not a tiny little country, and people have to get around. So, all right, let's get back to conversation with you, because you've got to take off here in about 15 minutes. I think we
about 15 minutes.
About 15 minutes we lose you, because he's got work. Imagine that. When I say imagine that, because everyone's like, you're not going to find a job, you're going to be unwelcome in America, no one's going to talk to you, they're going to hate you, they hate South Africans. They
don't. They're actually super friendly, and nobody actually cares. They don't care. They're welcoming. They're great. We love you, having you here. Put in the good effort. Take the opportunities, take the wins, and that's the mentality for everybody. Cross age, race, political, people don't, in this area, do not care about that kind of thing. They just want you to be a contributing member of society. All I can say is, when you do release them, go watch the short about my job.
Oh, yeah. Wait, so what he's talking about is we record a couple other videos, which I'm going to edit when I get back to the States. We're not really in the U.S. We're in South Africa. No, when I get back home on Wednesday, I get home Tuesday night, tomorrow night, but I'll edit these either tomorrow night or Wednesday. I've got one where we talk about the baseball game, and then when we talk about his job. So that's going to be, I think, entertaining. People are going to get a kick out of that. All right, I've never asked any of the refugees this, and if it's out of bounds, you just let me know. I'm ready for this. But we won't go into it. Just kind of like, not relating experience, because I don't ask that question, but Professor G did. So, a lot of Afrikaners in particular are people of faith, and faith is important to them, and they're churchgoers. I don't know if that's important to you and your family, but if it is, were you able to find an accommodation, to find a church? Is that something that's important to you?
We are living in the Bible Belt.
I know, that's why I asked the question.
Everything, whatever your religious choices are, there is space to facilitate you. There's even a non-denominational church where a huge following that goes there. And that's how you network in this area. That's how you get to know people, is generally through the church groups. As far as our position, we're agnostic, I suppose would be a good way to describe it. We have our own belief and we follow our own beliefs, but we don't believe in churches themselves. So we don't attend church.
I'm in the same view. I don't need to have a relationship with God by going to a building.
Absolutely.
So anyway, there's nothing wrong with churches. Not people come together for communion, for faith, but not everybody that has faith goes to church. Okay, so you want to dwell on that. So Chris Wyatt has been with me a long time. Said according to one of those who sent their statement in the last 48 hours, the interviews are still in Pretoria. Well, Chris, I don't know where that person gets that anecdotal information. What I can tell you is U.S. government officials have explicitly told me that interviews are also being done in Santon at our consulate on Santon Drive. sorry, they haven't renamed it yet. They haven't renamed it yet. No, so that's what I know from U.S. government officials. And also I know anecdotally from a couple of people who actually have done interviews in Joburg, not in Pretoria. So I don't know what that person knows or what they're saying, but things can change too. Maybe it didn't work out well. Maybe the EFF is outside harassing people. Who knows? But I can tell you that the U.S. government says that they're doing interviews in Joburg and in Pretoria. Also, what I said from the very beginning is that, a lot of people assume this will be done at the embassy. And right now that is the case, but you don't need the embassy. You just need an office building or a hotel somewhere with a business center. You go in and you have the conversation there. So if that happens to you, don't freak out. It's not the CIA black site. It's it's just a matter of processing this stuff. It doesn't take an embassy building to do this thing.
So I actually do need to tell you something about that. So we went to Pretoria for all three of our interviews. Two of them were actually at the consulate. A third was in a warehouse.
Okay, the consulate at the embassy building in Hatfield.
Yes.
Okay, so before you finish, I got to make that clear to people. South Africans and Americans run around going, I was at the U.S. Embassy in Cape Town. No, you weren't. I was at the embassy in Durban. No, you weren't. In Joburg. We don't have embassies in those places. You have one embassy in the country. It's in Hatfield. Now, we have consulates, for consular services in all those locations, and it may look like an embassy. It may be very impressive, like in Cape Town. It's a massive facility, but it's a consulate. There's no ambassador there. Yeah. No resident ambassador. There's a consul general there who does consular services like visas and Americans who have stolen passports, that sort of thing, and helping us register to vote. So there is a small consulate at the facility in Hatfield. That's part of that. Yeah. So that's what he's talking about. So he went to that consulate at our embassy, and that's an accurate statement. And then he went to a warehouse.
To a warehouse, yeah. The USCIS interview was in a warehouse. It was a government warehouse, and it was all their vehicles.
Did they put hoods on you to bring it?
No, not quite. It was a fun experience.
It wasn't 24 with Kiefer Sutherland.
Well, no hoods, but you can't take in any kind of, and I got to stress this: you cannot take electronic equipment in. You can't. You basically have a little locker that you put your stuff in, and that is at the embassy, and that's at the warehouse. You're not allowed to take any of that stuff in. So please, make sure you have everything in hard copy, because you're not going to be able to whip out your phone and go, oh yeah, here's the information. Yeah, have copies, take that with you. But yeah, it was in a warehouse. It was interesting.
Well, there you go. That jives exactly with my analysis back in February. And I said that's what's likely to happen. So someone had a note here. One of my mods deleted. It says, I hear your life has to be physically in harm's way to pass for refugee. No, that's not true. You have to articulate a legitimate fear of future persecution. I mean, look, guys, let's okay. I've told this story many times, so please listen. All right. Let's say you're gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Let's say that you're gay. That's the line from Seinfeld for those who missed that joke. Anyway, so let's say you're gay and you live in Damascus. Not a cool place to be a homosexual. So kind of frowned upon there. So in case you don't keep up current events, they have a habit of taking homosexuals they identify and throwing them off the roof to their death. So if you have not been attacked and you're gay, but there's a chance someone's going to find out and toss you off the roof, do we wait until after you've been tossed off? You know what? You had a legitimate fear of persecution. Oh, sorry, he's dead.
Too late now.
Too late. No, folks, you got to use common sense and logic here, okay? You don't have to, no one has to have a gun at your head. You have to present a case of a legitimate fear. To me, if I was a South African, Indian, colored, Afrikaner, other whites, start using the term other whites, and I lived there, I would have legitimate fear that I couldn't get a contract with the government and my business would suffer because I'm not BE qualified, because I don't hire people based on their skin pigmentation, because I'm not a racist. I hire them based on their skills and their work ethic. Imagine that. What a concept that would be.
It's crazy. Crazy stuff there.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, so that's the story there, folks. Relax. And for those of you just popping in for the first time, I would appreciate if you take the trouble. Obviously, you have become a subscriber if you're commenting. For those of you watching and lurking in the background, if you're not a subscriber, please become one. It takes a lot of time and effort here and a lot of disruption in one's life to try to get these stories to people and get you objective, honest information. And kudos to Errol, who comes on camera. He's been very generous with his time for so many different folks, with Annika Larson, with me, and with others. And people don't have to have this intrusion in life, and he's not getting paid for this. He's not being famous. Trust me, that famous is not what he's looking for.
No, I'm very famous back in South Africa for all the wrong reasons. So I do this not for any personal gain. I do this because there's a lot of people back in South Africa and across the divide, Indians, coloreds, whites, you name it, that are in a really bad space. And I'm hoping that the little bit of feedback that I give and the comments that I make actually will help them, set some people's minds at ease. That's why I'm doing this. I have, if anything, been persecuted for the interviews and stuff that I've had.
Yeah, no, a couple things here, and 100% with that, and I've also taken a lot of grief, but I'm not even a refugee. I've taken a lot of grief too, but I put myself out there. Errol is just doing a public service, which a lot of people aren't really appreciative or grateful for. But there's a couple things in the chat I want to cover here before you have to leave, and that is, I didn't catch what Professor G said. Something about, I think he's saying, he might have said, if I get it wrong, Professor G, my apologies, but the chat's going fast. Something about taking taking digital images, something like that. You're not going to be able to take those things in. So print everything out.
Yeah.
Everything that supports your case. Every instance, every email where you're denied a contract or a job because your skin color or bursary, or every screen capture of a death threat you received by someone because you're white or Indian or colored. All that stuff. Print all of it out. Take it in folders. Organize it chronologically. Do that. And also issue related. So do all that. Prep before you go in. But you can't take your phones in because they're not going to allow you to have a recording device in that facility because of the jeopardy that could put the whole program in, plus put you in. Look, I have a top secret sensitive compartment information clearance facility. I'm one of the people with the highest level clearance in the United States. I've been read for programs in which only 3 people in the entire country of America are aware of the details of that program. So to say that I'm a trusted agent is an understatement. Yet when I walk into an embassy, I can't take my phone. I went to the consulate in Cape Town recently when I was in South Africa for an unrelated issue. And normally I would not have been allowed to take my phone, but because of who I was, they made an exception. But even then, I didn't get inside the building proper. I was just in an anteroom on the outside. And because I had to show them something on the phone, it was no way for me to print it out. I was traveling. So that was an exception for a very trusted agent. So no, I'm not a secret agent. I mean, the phrase trusted agent. If you work in IT, you know what trusted agent means. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you know what I'm talking about. Let's be clear about that. Next thing I know, we talk about being the CIA again. But animals. Okay. So if you've got pets, that's your responsibility. There is an effort by some folks out in Wyoming, Operation Pet Lift, that's coming together to try to help reduce the cost and help you get over here. It's a very complicated process. I can tell you anecdotally that I moved to Botswana in 2008. And I paid, the first time, $4,500, something like that, to take my 2 cats to Botswana. Most of that cost was because of veterinary requirements in South Africa. When I brought one of those cats from Tunisia to the States in 2001, I paid $75 to put him on the flight. That's it. There's no quarantine, $75, and brought him over on a flight from Frankfurt. That was it. But for going back, it was a lot cheaper. But going to South Africa cost a ton of money, going through South Africa. So you're going to have to foot that bill yourself if you've got pets. Some people have left their pets behind with people that they trust. And as they get jobs over here and raise money, they're going to put the money together to bring their pets over. But you can bring your pets. Now, if you got some exotic stuff like pythons, I mean, good luck with that.
So I do want to say that this is a very pet-friendly society.
Oh, it is.
You can, the place we're staying in, $25 per pet, and you can have the pet in your home. And there is a surcharge, but it's got to do with cleaning carpets and all that kind of thing. Pets, are better trained and treated better often than most kids. Not that kids get treated badly. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, folks, we're going to have to wrap up, and I hate to do that. We got an audience of 733 right now, but Errol has got some prior commitments, and he's going to take care of business because, he's working. So he's got
a job.
He's got to do that. Now, this won't be the last time I see Errol. I've been invited back for dinner this evening. It's not a bribe. but I have been invited back for dinner. Unfortunately, Errol won't be here because he'll be working.
Yeah. So again, I'm sorry, I screwed that one up completely. So yeah, I got my schedules a bit wrong there. I flipped the times around. But either way, I'm glad you're going to be joining us for dinner tonight. And we've actually got boerewors that's been made by an ex-South African lady, probably about 40 miles from here. Absolutely brilliant. It's probably of the best that I've had. So I hope you enjoy it.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I look forward to it, but I also am terrified because I am a very finicky and particular eater, and I'm very careful when people invite me to dinner. I always like, you gotta be careful. That's why, like the little kid who like tries to hide their mashed potatoes by smashing them down the plate because they don't like to eat them, or they put the peas on the mashed. Yeah, they put the peas under the mashed potatoes because they don't want to eat them. So anyway, but the hospitality is wonderful. So Errol is and his family are here in the deep South, and they've already adjusting to the Southern hospitality.
Yeah, really friendly people, loving it. Yeah. Got no complaints. I mean, I know you asked earlier about there must be some bad things. Yeah, they are, but it's overwhelmingly positive. So you kind of get to ignore the bad things or just deal with them.
Yep, there you go. All right, folks. Well, I apologize. We could probably go for an hour and a half, but we're gonna have to wrap it up here because he's got to work, and I encourage him to work because when he works, he pays taxes, and then it's not just me carrying the load. So you refugees can come over here. All right, Errol. I'll see Errol tomorrow because we got another event taking place tomorrow, and so won't be the last time we chat. But I want to say bye donkey, que a la boa. Thank you so much for your time. And I do have one question here. Errol's got a bit of ink. I don't know if he wants to talk about it. If he doesn't want to talk, he doesn't have to. But I'm looking down, and this looks distinctly like Blondie characters on his arm.
It is Blondie. Let me get a little bit closer there. So Dagwood and Blondie.
I mean, he's a South African. He's got Dagwood and Blondie tattooed on his arm. I was like, what's that all about?
I can tell you the story about that. My wife and I met on a dating site, and farmersonly.com. So the first time we met, you'll see in the background, you can see it's got the M. We met in a McDonald's.
Oh, dear God.
Our first meet and greet.
So we have Cyril Ramaphosa to thank for your reunion.
And yeah, that was 10 years. That was 13 years ago.
Well, they met. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. But what's so Blondie and Dagwood? You guys are Blondie and Dagwood?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. There you go. So there you have
I grew up with Dagwood and Blondie.
I remember it, but it was cartoons. I didn't pay much attention to Dagwood and Blondie. I remember Marmaduke and
Andy Cap and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
All right, well, folks, that's going to do it here from not Central Pennsylvania, not South Africa, coming to you live from Alabama. And they've got a place out here that a lot of people mistake for California. It's L.A., Lower Alabama. You heard about that? Anyway, all right, Errol, thank you very much.
Thank you, Colonel. And to everybody back home, all the best. Good luck.
All right, cheers, everybody. Let me shut it down here. It's still live.